Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I have taken this opportunity to impart or to let everyone know how this instrument, popularly known as harmonica, but actually I like to call it the mouth organ. And I would like to tell everyone the technicalities of it, how to actually start learning. And all that I will tell you, I have actually learned everything. I have learned from my guru, who was my uncle, Mr. Melon Gupta. Why probably? He is the greatest mouth organ or harmonica player ever born in the country. He is the person who actually took this instrument to the forefront and was one of the greatest soloists of the country. In other words, a true maestro. This instrument, as we commonly call it as mouth organ or harmonica, it's not an easy instrument. It's not an easy instrument to learn. It's not an easy instrument to play. And I wanted to tell you all of this at the very beginning because this is the only instrument in the world which you can't see when you play. So that adds to a very different complexity of it. If somebody says blow on the 4th hole or draw on the 7th hole, you can't see it, right? It has to get absorbed in yourself, in your mind, and in your heart. Everything at the end of the day when you play, it has to come from your heart. So that's one of the biggest difficulties that I always feel this instrument has. Secondly, it's a very small instrument. It's got 12 holes here. You can look at it. It's got 12 holes, and in these 12 holes, you have 3 full octaves, complete octaves. From one sa to the 2nd sa to the 3rd sa to the 4th sa. So it has a complete range of three full octaves. So the complexities of blow, draw, then the sharps and the flats, when, at which hole what to play, how you move, how you transition from one note to the other. Because it's such a small instrument, a compact instrument, it becomes even more difficult. Very commonly, what we always have seen is that, people think that it's a very easy instrument. It's a pocket instrument. Go to the college, just stick it in your mouth and just do like that. That's not how you actually learn. So whatever I will teach you, I have learned from my guru, as I just now told you. So I will actually start from the very beginning, like the sound of music. Let's start at the very beginning. plates, there are flaps. There are reed plates on the top, there are reeds on the top, there are reeds underneath, and there are flaps on each of the reeds. And then you have something called a slider. So that when you press the slider, the holes change. So depending on what notes you have to play, you can play that. It's commonly referred to that, if you press the slider, you will end up playing sharp notes and flat notes. Not necessarily. On the note of C, if you press the note, depending on what scale, C or C sharp, depending on what scale you're playing, it will still give you a natural note. It's not always a sharp or a flat note, but primarily it is used for sharps and flats. I have learned this instrument from a very young age. So the first thing that I wanted to teach or tell you all, I probably won't be teaching, is that the way to play this instrument is that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till 12 holes. So let's start from the 4th hole or a 5th hole, right? So if you're playing from the 4th hole, you have to cover the first 4 holes with your mouth, like this. Then you have to put your tongue to the left, which is like this. It will be inside your mouth. So you have covered the first 4 holes and your tongue has slid to your left. Now you press the tongue on the first 3 holes. So effectively what happens is that there is a small gap on the right hand side which actually is directly on the 4th hole, and the first 3 holes are covered. That's how you move up and move down. All you're playing is actually from that corner. That's one way of playing. When you have to play the first 3 holes, because you don't have any more holes on the left hand side, you have to play with a pucker face. Pucker face like this. So that's how basically you start your playing. When you start your playing like that, the first lesson or the first level of difficulty that you have to cross is you have to constantly think through how to play a single note. That's very important. So when I started, it was basically sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa you have to play, and he taught me what is sa, what is re, what is ga. So sa is blow on the 4th or the 5th hole, re is draw on that same hole, which is the 5th hole, most likely to the right with that entire positioning. Blow on the 6th hole is ga, draw on the same hole is ma, move one more hole, blow is pa, draw is dha, move one more hole, it is not blow, it is draw is ni, and then blow is sa. So blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, draw, blow. And then when you come back, it is blow, draw, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, blow. That's how it moves. These are the natural notes. So sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa, sa ni dha pa ma ga re sa. So it basically goes like. That's the basic principle of learning. So you have to play with single note. Single note is extremely important to understand, and single note is what you should be always practicing to focus on. When you are playing that, you also have to understand or know how to hold this instrument. There are a lot of people who might hold like this. This is not the right way to hold. There may be somebody who may be holding it like this. This is not the right way to hold. The right way to hold is your left hand, and I'm talking because I am a right-hand person. So with your left hand, you have to hold the instrument like this. So there is some gap coming up. So you can see that that's the gap which is coming up. The right hand, depending on whether you're using the button or not, should cover it like this. So it gives a nice, a cushion underneath, and that's how you move. So it will be. And then when you move this hand, there's a slight feel of a vibrato. This instrument doesn't have its own reverb, right? It's a very dry instrument. So to make it sound slightly better with a little bit more dynamic, so that's the first step. That's how you actually start learning this instrument. Then comes the flat notes, the sharp notes, the komal notes and the tivra notes. There is only one tivra, which is ma, and the other ones are the komal notes. So re komal, ga komal, dha komal, ni komal. So a simple structure can be. Now, if you want to make it a minor scale, which is the third note becomes flat, or ga becomes komal, so immediately it goes to the minor scale. So when you are practicing, you start with the middle octave, right, from the fifth hole. Then you practice the higher octave. So after you have practiced the higher octave, then you come to the lower octave. The lower octave needs more breath. The lower octave needs more of your nose to play this. So you have to, you have to draw a lot of it from your nose. When you have, practiced, gotten used to it, used to the instrument, that you don't have to look at that instrument to say that which hole I'm playing, which hole I'm not playing. That's the time you gradually try and move to the next level, which is some sort of practice, some sort of exercises. And all these exercises, obviously you have to write it down, you have to learn the notations, something that, it is extremely difficult to teach online. I know these are COVID times and it's all digital, but believe me, face to face is always far better. So there you have to write it on. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. Instead of that you say sa re ga ma pa da. So like that you can do, or sa re ga ma pa da. So you can do all of that, and you have to keep practicing, because that gives you alternate blow draws, that that helps you suddenly come back, go up, come back, go. So or that can be another structure. Once you have gotten used to it and you have practiced a lot, and you need a lot of practice and a lot of discipline. For any instrument, for anything, you actually need a lot of discipline. This instrument particularly, you need a lot of discipline. You need lung power, you need a very, very regular routine of when you want to practice. You need to practice when you're fresh. You need to play when you're fresh. You also don't eat full stomach and then play. You know, it's very difficult because it's a blow and draw instrument. So all of that you have to keep in mind when you start learning. These instruments are also very, very expensive instruments. Even when I started learning, it was extremely expensive. Even now it is extremely expensive. Yes, our purchasing power has increased, all of that, but believe me, this is an expensive instrument. These instruments are all handmade. The one that I use, I actually use a German instrument from one of the greatest harmonica manufacturing companies called Honor. I don't know whether it's 200 or 300-year-old company, but it's a very, very old organization. These are all handmade instruments. These are tuned with your hand, tuned with the normal human ear. That's how it is actually done. So these are extremely expensive instruments. So one of the key advice that I will always give you is that take care of this instrument. Okay, it is very easy to lose that money if you don't take care of the instrument. So taking care of the instrument is the way you're playing when you are learning, especially when you're learning, and the way you're storing this instrument when you're not playing. Both are equally important. When you are playing this instrument, you have to keep one thing in mind, that the blow and the draw, especially when you're learning, the blow, draw should be of equal pressure. If you blow too hard or draw too hard, that reed which is there, when the reed actually bends, and that's how the sound comes out, that reed may flap, or the tuning of that reed may go. It is possible to retune it, but you can't do it. You won't be able to do it. I don't know how many people do it in India right now, or how many of them actually do it. My uncle used to do it. One of the reasons that I don't do it is that it requires a very, very fine pair of ears to reach that exact tuning, right? So I actually rely on the company rather than my ears when I'm buying. So that's another key, absolutely key advice that I will give you when you are playing, to take care of the instrument. When you are not playing this instrument, you have to store it in a place which is slightly humid. It should not be in a place which is extremely dry. So the way I store it, and I can tell you, the way I have stored my instruments, for decades now, is that I put this inside the cupboard or the almirah in my bedroom, and I wrap it up with a lot of clothes. It's not one instrument that I have, I have quite a few. So I wrap it up with my clothes, and it is kept, absolutely at the back of the almirah. So even if you have an air conditioning in the room, or depending on the weather, if you have a heater in the room, and it stays little moist. If it becomes too dry, this wood can crack. Okay. So in earlier days, when we started learning, or I started learning, this wood used to crack a lot. But off late, and touch wood, it has not happened. Mainly probably because I've taken good care of it. The third thing that you have to really keep in mind when you take care of this instrument is that do not wash it with water. Do not. Okay. After you have played, because the saliva will go in. That's the nature of a blow or draw instrument. After you have played it, you just do like this for quite some time. Keep the buttons like this. After give it another 5 minutes, come back and again, press the button so that these don't get stuck once you have put it in your box and kept it inside. And then once it is all done, then you can store it, and you can put it in the case and you store it inside. That's the way I do it, and it has worked well for me. So I think if you all also follow that, it will help and it will be good. Another thing that I forgot actually, another thing that I forgot to tell you is that when you play this instrument, there are two ways of moving up and down, right? One is your face can move up and down, the other is your hand can move up and down, right? It is extremely important. I know that the face will still move a little bit, but it is extremely important to learn that your hand should move and your face should not move. Now, how do you do that? How do you learn that? Right? The only way to learn that is that when you start practicing, or even if you have learned for many years and you are still practicing, practice by standing in front of a mirror and looking straight into that mirror you are playing. That's the way you will be able to observe what are the flaws you are getting, and you are constantly correcting it. So you have just now seen that So here you see that my face is hardly moving, except if my whole body is a little bit moving, but it's the hand which is moving. Here it's sa, ni, sa, ga. So I went from sa to pa to dha to sa, and then again to the lower pa. So it's the hand which needs to move, and the head needs to be absolutely still. That's the best way that you can bring the flavor of this instrument, play it properly. Our face is not meant to move like this, right? It's much more easier to move your hand. So that's the reason why it should be like this. Once you have practiced all of this and you have, I would say, mastered, take one step at a time. Okay, don't try to run a sprint. This is not a sprint game. Learning an instrument, learning music, or learning anything is never a sprint. It's like I always say, it's not an IPL, it's a test match. You have to play a test match. When you learn, you will have some of the problems, physical problems, which will come up, right? So if you look at when somebody learns a guitar or a sitar or a sarod, their fingers, especially these areas, it all goes, very, very bad. It becomes numb, there'll be cuts here, there'll be bruises here. It's natural, because our fingers were not used to that. If you look at somebody who's playing a violin, you hold the violin here. I don't know if you have seen any violinists, the shoulders and all, it's completely, there are marks here. So any instrument that you play, typically, or broadly, you have some form of physical injuries. I won't say these are injuries, because these are the steps and processes to actually learn this instrument. But that's what you'll have. If you're too conscious about your vanity, probably this is not the right thing for you to learn. It goes the same with this instrument. These are all brass and metal plates, right? So when your tongue is on the left, your tongue will get cut. If you're playing it properly, your tongue they will be bleeding, and you can't stop playing. You have to keep playing with all of that so that that side gets seasoned. Also, because it is on this mouth, so these two corners of the mouth, these will hurt. These will get bruised, and then over a period of time, these will also get seasoned. It takes time. The bruise and the seasoning will not happen in 7 days. It'll take months. You have to just overcome that. That's the most difficult part of overcoming. How do you manage that pain to overcome that? So that if you keep your objective clear, if you keep your goals clear, that I want to learn and master this instrument, you have to overcome all of this. Will these sort of bruises or the permanent bruises, these bruises will remain permanent? Answer is yes. Okay, so you should be absolutely clear in your mind that if you are playing it well, there will be some form of seasoning which will happen in your tongue, inside your mouth, and on the corners of your lips. So you just have to get used to it and just forget that aspect from your head. The other thing is that it's not a glamorous instrument, right? So a lot of people who want to learn or who don't want to learn, they are all
glamorous instruments. Those are all glamorous instruments. Like somebody learning a guitar when you've gone on stage, right? The whole audience can see you. You're strumming the guitar, or you're playing some leads, or playing some hook lines. And in today's day and age, you will shake your head, etc., and make it more engaging. There is a lot of glamour to those instruments, right? And a lot of those instruments have a lot of glamour. This instrument has zero glamour, because the first thing when you get on stage, when you're playing with the microphone in front of you, you put this here, your face is covered. No one can see your face. You can do whatever you want to. There is no glamour. Okay, so be absolutely conscious about it, that this instrument is not going to give you that kind of flavor that a guitarist can do on stage, right? Every instrument, every musician of those instruments are different. They have their different characteristics. They bring different things on the stage or on the table. And all of us, all musicians, we appreciate all of that. When you start learning, you also should start appreciating that. It is, what will I say, it is extremely important that when you start learning, you get these things clear in your head. So you don't suffer, 6 months down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, right? So that's exactly how I would say you should look at these instruments. There are various other tips that I will keep giving you now. And basically how to play, how to take the breaths, because that is very important. Now, this instrument is a Western instrument. The structure of the instrument is a Western instrument. It has not been structured to play Indian music. My uncle actually adapted this instrument in India to play Indian music as if that this instrument was made for Indian music. That was the greatness, and that's why they are maestros. Fortunately, I've been extremely lucky and fortunate to have learned from him. So he taught me a lot of those nitty-gritties of how to adapt this instrument. So every instrument needs to get adapted to whatever you play, because everything is not always written for that particular instrument, right? So let's say if you're playing a song which has a long
bluish note, or which we call mid, right? How do you play a mid? This instrument is not meant for a mid instrument, mid note or a mid note progression. So how do you play this? So you have to keep that in mind. Okay, so I just have to adapt that. So the technique or the thought that I actually follow in adaptation of this instrument to play Indian music, I keep the piano in mind. And there will be various other methods to actually go through. I'm just letting you know how I approach it and how I think through it. So it will be the piano in mind. So when a piano plays, piano is also very key driven, right? So it's very strike notes. In piano also you can't play the mid. So I closely observe how, if I had to play a particular song on an Indian song on a piano, how would I have adapted that? And I actually apply that in this instrument. So you see, I'm taking help of another Western instrument called a piano to help me with this Western instrument to make a song sound very, very Indian whilst I'm playing a Western, Western instrument, right? So that's exactly how I always approach these things. And I think it'll be important, it'll be good for you all to also approach it in that manner. I'm giving you slightly detailed learning processes that I have gone through, and I still go through, and in my mind, and I'm constantly doing that. I do practice, there is no alternative to practice. Okay, however good a player, however great a player, whatever you do, whichever instrument, whatever singing or painting or even a sports person, there is no alternative to practice. There is no alternative to rehearsals. So keep all of that in mind. I will gradually get into the next level of courses. When I'm saying courses, the next level, the next level of steps. But for anybody to become a musician, or even if you don't want to be a professional musician, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to be at a particular level of your of becoming a musician, you have to listen to a lot of music. Okay, and that music should not be limited to only one area or two areas. You really have to listen to all forms of music, right from probably 1900s to 2020 and forward, and all genres. You have to constantly listen to the modern music. We keep saying that modern music is bad, modern music is, olden times were good. Every generation has actually made that statement that the previous generation's music was good. So don't think like that. There are a lot of good things. There are a lot of good music which are available, and please listen to a lot of Western music. Western classical is one of the instruments that you should always. Western classical is one of the genres that you should listen to, because it's so rich. It's centuries old. It will give you a lot of sense of harmony. The Western music is harmony based, and Indian music is a tonic in nature. So you have to understand that part of the music world. You may not like that when you start, but that's fine. As you keep listening to it, you will start liking those pieces. You will keep liking those that form of music. And then the other piece or the other genre that I would always recommend to everybody to listen to is jazz. Obviously you'll be listening to Indian classical music and the Indian semi-classical and the Indian popular music, and in all languages. But please do listen to jazz. It'll be very, very difficult when you start listening to jazz at the very beginning. I can assure you it is extremely difficult to take it in your ears. But keep listening to it. Don't give it up. The richness, the learnings, what all can happen, what all they do, how you can actually adapt this, take some of the learnings and do this. Even if you're not playing jazz, so what all can you do? It's fascinating. So if you keep listening to jazz, Western classical, and serious Indian classical music, whether it's instrumental or vocal, it'll it'll do very, very good to you, to your learning, to your senses for all those instruments. Welcome back. This is the second part, and here I will tell you, when you play a song, how do you want to approach it, right? So one is obviously you'll have to have the right notation, okay? Do not always play by the ear. You may be able to play by the ear, okay? But when you listen to a song or when you want to play a song, play that song, listen to it carefully, write down the notations. If you cannot write down the notations, ask somebody who can write the notations and very correctly. So this song, Jodi to dak shune kyu na ashe. This is a famous Rabindranath Tagore composition. His songs notations are all available with these are all established and freely available notations. So get that right notation and then play, because sometimes what happens is that when you don't know how to write a notation, or if you have missed out some notes, you will end up playing something which is not accurate. Okay, so do you want to improvise a little bit on the song when you are playing as a song? Surely you have to make it your. You have to make it your song. It should become your style. But do not forget that original notation of the original composer. It is very important to establish that first. So once you establish that first, then you can take some liberties here and there with respect to the capabilities or abilities of this instrument, and then the capability or ability of yourself as a player. So this is the style that I want to use. This is a little bit of style. So like I did this. I did it once like this, but then Papa, Mama, Gaga, Re, Sa, Re, Gaga, Re, Ga, Sa. So those are not there. Pa, Ma, Ga, Re, Sa, Re, Gaga, Re, Ga, Sa. That's how the notation is. But I took a little bit of liberty, not at the very beginning, just at the end, just to make it feel a little bit better or nice, according to me. When you take those liberties, do not distort it. Okay, you always keep the the composer's composition's respect in your mind. That is very, very important. If you don't keep the composer's respect, you will end up distorting. Typically you will make a remake, right? You don't want to do a remake which doesn't sound good, right? You want to make something which is your own style. So I know a lot of you learn from various people, and there are many people who actually teach extremely well. There is always a tendency that when you are learning from somebody, you copy that person, right? So one of the biggest challenges that I had in my mind when I first started learning is that I could have, or I would have copied my uncle Milan Gupta, right? And exactly the way he plays, exactly the tone, the tonal structure, the tonal beauty, the style, etc. Everything
I probably would have ended up copying. Thankfully, and that's where the greatness or the greats are all about. My uncle at the very beginning actually told me that never copy me, okay? Never copy me, learn from me, but develop your own style. And he gave me an example of Clapton. He said, in those days, he said that, do you listen to Clapton? And I had just about started listening to Clapton in those days. Not just about, I would have started for a few years. And he said that when you listen to Clapton, you don't have to be told that that is Mr. Eric Clapton, right? You know that is Eric Clapton. But he is playing a guitar. There are so many other guitarists, and everyone has their own style. You know exactly who is playing just by listening to it. He said that's what you have to achieve. So that particular statement of his really helped. When I was learning, did I make mistakes? Oh, you can't imagine, hundreds and hundreds of mistakes in my life. Okay, and there was a particular afternoons where I was learning from him, and I was making the same mistake every 5 seconds. He was playing, play this note, I was playing a wrong note. Play this note, same note he was going to say. He just threw me out. So I quickly packed and went away. I had the option of, he was my Mossa, right? So I had the option of getting more emotional and hurt and not come back, right? When I went to learn from him, he was not my Mossa, he was my guru. He was my Guruji. That's how I learned. I used to be scared of him. You can't imagine, and he was tall, he was 6 feet plus, extremely good looking, handsome, not an inch of fat. I used to be scared of him. So when I learned from my Mossa, Milan Gupta, I learned it as a, Guru-Shishya relationship, right? After, when I was finishing that learning, when I was not finishing the learning, but probably that day's class, then I was chatting with my cousin, my Mausi, etc. Then it was normal, right? My uncle never mixed those two. Okay, so keep that in mind. When you are learning, you will get scolded by your teacher. That's the only way you will learn. You will only learn if you know how to take the scolding. So keep that also in mind. Another aspect that you have to also keep in mind is that for anybody to become a musician, you have to be your biggest self-critic. Every single day you should be finding your own fault. Constantly, whatever you are playing, whatever you have recorded, if you have released something, you listen to it and say, I would have played it much better. Okay, so you have to be constantly criticizing yourself. That's the only way you can go up, right? if you can't do that, you will stay at a particular place. Okay. Another aspect that you have to keep in mind is that what is your benchmark, right? Like, where do you want to reach? What is your goal, or whom do you want to idolize when you are learning, especially this instrument that we are talking about right now? You have to always benchmark at the very top, right? My benchmark, my Mausa, obviously, he was my benchmark always. But he taught me that I should not be. He made me constantly listen to Larry Adler and Jerry Morard and loads and loads of other great musicians, especially on mouth organ or harmonica, right? So he introduced me to all of them. And in those days there was no YouTube, right? You have to understand that there was no YouTube. We couldn't easily go to a store and buy a CD or a record or a cassette. Whatever we wanted, it was not there. So whatever was there with my uncle, whatever we could hear on the radio, those are the things, we used to listen to. But he introduced me. He said, listen to how this person is playing. Listen to how that, what are the things that is possible. Another aspect that you have to keep in mind is the limitation of an instrument. It is very, very important. For every instrument, there is a limitation. There are limitations, not only one. So don't stretch your imagination beyond that limitation. Okay, you might want to do a lot of things, but it has to be within that boundary of the limitation, because that's exactly how it is built. You will probably be able to do fantastic things, and I know there are a lot of youngsters who are doing amazing, absolutely stunning interpretation of and playing on this instrument to very, very different things, which we couldn't have ever thought about at that time. But that's how it progresses. That's how you take one step at a time, and that's how music progresses. So you need to keep all of that in mind when you start learning, when you go through the classes. Identify a good teacher. I'm sure and I know there are lots of good teachers. Identify some good teachers who are somewhere in your vicinity. Sometimes all of you may not be staying close to each other, but if you can find somebody who is good. So the first thing that I will recommend all of you do is that do not learn from somebody who does not write notations and proper notations. Okay, it's not about copying somebody else's notation. Notation is that if I'm giving you something without an instrument, I will open my book and I will write a notation for you, right? So I may use the instrument a little bit to fine-tune the notations, but please do not write. It is the grammar. When we all started learning music, when we all started learning our ABCDs in our childhood, from nursery and the kindergarten classes, we all learn grammar, right? That's how we can construct a sentence. That's how we can write a paragraph. That's how we can come out with something meaningful. So please do not learn from anywhere or anybody who will not teach you grammar. And if you don't know grammar, start learning the grammar. The other part that I would like to show you is, there are some other techniques that you need to know of this instrument. So something which is called an octave playing. Now, octave playing, like, remember at the beginning I showed you that how you can, when you play, how you play with covering the 4 holes and keeping a gap on the right hand side and the tongue on the left hand side, and you move up and down. So there's something called an octave playing. So octave playing is the first sa and the upper sa, they're all playing together. So sa, re, ga, ma. So every note. So you just move up and down, and both the sas are playing together. So it's like sa, sa. So all are playing together, right? So now how do you do that? So instead of covering, so if you're playing from the 5th hole, instead of covering 4 holes, before that, cover 5 holes. Okay? So from the 5th hole, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so 5th to the 9th, you cover all the 5 holes with your mouth, right? So like this. Like that you cover. Once you cover that, instead of the tongue going to the left,
the tongue should be the center, pressing the second, third and the fourth hole. Okay, so second, third and the fourth hole. So if the first hole is on your left hand side and the fifth hole is on your right hand side, the second, third and the fourth, which is the center, those are the three holes the tongue should press and should remain pressed, and you move up and down, right? So so all the notes are playing, the higher notes and the lower notes, both the sas, both the res, both the pas, das, all both the higher and the lower notes are playing together. So that's how you move up and down, move up and down. It'll hurt the tongue, as I told you. So don't bother about your tongue getting hurt. So that's how you have to move up and down. These things sometimes are very useful, especially when you are playing alone, right? So you would like to play a little bit of the music, or maybe a part of the song like that. It's all good. It's wonderful to do all of that, and it adds a different texture, right? It adds a different texture to how you're playing that. So you should do that, and you should start practicing. But do not practice this till you have mastered all the other things at the very beginning, right? So go through those processes, absolutely master it, then you move to this. Okay. Don't start trying, don't start playing a song from the very beginning. Just learn the grammar a little bit. I know it is boring, but it's in the long run, it is extremely helpful. It is extremely useful. So that's how you should look at doing this. After that, especially when you're playing alone, this instrument, you have friends over and you're having good fun and you're playing this instrument. Sometimes it's nice to give a rhythmic approach, right? You can give some, rhythm patterns to it, not always, sometimes. Okay, so keep that in mind. So let's say, so that this part can be played like this. This can be played like this, very simply, right? But you can add a little bit of rhythm to it, right? This is also with the tongue, and I'll do it. So I don't remember these notations very well, but that's how you can play these structures. So you can add a little bit of rhythm in rhythm fill in it. So the rhythm fill is when the tongue is here, the tongue is actually striking in a particular rhythm in the in the beat of the song, right? So it can be as simple as that. Let's say if you know this Tagore song. So this is, in a very simple way you are playing that, the Alo Amar Alo, this is the song. But and it's in a waltz rhythm. So if you want to put a little bit of rhythm in it, you cannot put the waltz beat at the tak 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 tak. You cannot do it in every note, every movement, because you have to understand where the song is moving, how it is moving. You have to keep the tongue in mind. So these are smaller techniques that I'm teaching or telling you all that I've learned. Also listen to the playing of these great masters, whether it's Mr. Malang Gupta, whether it's Larry Adler, whether it's there are
lots and lots of great players, and even today, listen to a lot of the Japanese musicians. Japanese are extremely good harmonica players, especially the chromatic ones, because Mr. Larry Adler actually spent a lot of time in Japan, and he has lots of Japanese students, and eventually, their students, the next generation of students also have learned this. And so those are very rich musicians there. So keep listening to them, and think when you are actually playing a song, or when you're playing a piece, or when you're learning something, let's say it's a very difficult piece. Okay, so there are two ways of looking at that difficult piece, right? One is vertically, right? So vertically meaning, it's so difficult that you have to keep climbing that pole, right? The easier way to look at it is in a horizontal way, right? It's like a piano, it's like a keyboard, let's put it that way, okay? However far the notes are, it's actually far easier to reach than to climb a vertical pole. So think music not vertically, okay, in the horizontal form. If you will be able to grasp it easier. These are very subtle things I'm trying to tell you. The way I have benefited out of all of this. I have also got spent lot of lot of time with extremely big musicians in the country, right from when I started learning. So they have also, and they were not always, and they were not mouth organ players. They were absolutely great geniuses in other instruments, and they have imparted this knowledge to me, and I picked it up, and I made it work. I mean, when I say I made it work, I used it, it worked, and I said, okay, I'm not giving it up. So that's something I have done, and surely you can use that. I'm sure it will be very helpful and very useful for all of you in that. What else? There is one more thing. Yeah, there is one more thing that I would definitely want to tell you is that when you are playing this instrument, okay,
please do not have anything in your mouth, like a chewing gum, or you've just had some soft or a toffee or etc. Please do not. This instrument will absolutely go for a toss, right? Before playing, wash your mouth. If you're eating, if you had something in your mouth, wash your mouth completely. There should not be any particle inside, whether it's food or otherwise. There should not be any particle inside. Completely washed. Apply some lotion, lip balm or cream. It'll be easier to move from or slide along on all of this on the instruments. So please do that. Let me also tell you that there will be pieces that when you try to learn, when you try to play, you will think that it is impossible. I am unable to learn it, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult. Okay, just don't give up. Okay, just do not give up. You'll reach there. In your mind, if you're giving up, you won't reach there. Believe me. So keep at it constantly. Secondly, this is, or I should say secondly. There are so many things I have been telling you. When you start learning grammar, also learn the Western grammar. Okay, because they're all very similar, but you need to learn the Western grammar also extremely well. So what is a major scale? What is a minor scale? What are the various variants of those scales? Because in this instrument, let's say you have learned through Indian notations and you know Indian notation very well, but knowing that Western notation or the structure will help you adapt this instrument far better in an Indian notation structure or an Indian piece. So I'll give you an example. So let's say if there is a minor song, typically I do that. I always do that, and I found it extremely helpful. If there's a minor song, and generally speaking, you will have the third note as a flat note. You may even have the ni as komal ni. So there will be a lot of button movements, right? There will be a lot of button movements. When you are playing a minor song, and you have to identify that that's a minor song, make the re as the sa. Okay, so let's say, so instead of sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa, you will do re ga ma pa dha ni sa re. That's your scale, right? When you do that, and the reason when you do that, your third note is ma, right? Re ga in a minor scale, the shuddha ma, not the tibra ma, right? So re ga shuddha ma, and shuddha ma is the flattened in a minor scale. You don't need the button, right? So your re becomes, or you make the sa, dha, the sa, so dhani sa, so ni sa, so the sa is actually the third note, which is the flattened third, right? So you have to do those minor tweaks here and there, and you will see it is, you can adapt this instrument extremely well in all of that. Unfortunately, I'm not playing some of those minor scales, because there will be copyright issues. But and that's why I'm sticking to a Tagore song or a folk song. But broadly speaking, that's how you look at it. Next, when you are also playing a piece, or especially if it's a song, remember the words, remember the lyrics by heart. Okay, do not look at the notation while playing. Okay, your notation should be completely in your head, right? I don't need to know the notation. I don't need to have the notation in front of me and I have to look at it and play. Then I'm focusing on the notation and not on my playing. Your playing should have lot of touch, finesse, passion, expression, all of that, right? Your notation should be in your head. You know the song by heart. Secondly, play the song like a song, as if somebody is singing. The lyrics should almost come up, right? Great. play it with your heart, you know. Godhuli gagone me. So play it with your heart, play the way the song has been written, play the way the song has been sung, you know. That's what touches the heart. So even if you hear Western music, if you listen to Western classical music where there are no lyrics, right, or a jazz piece, there is so much expression, you know. Every conductor or every musician will play it slightly differently depending on their style, depending on where to give the accent, where not to give the accent. That's completely on you. You know, bring your own style to it, but focus on the expression. That's how you have to play this song. And I played this song because, you know, that's the next song which is now going to be released after Tum Pukar Lo, which got released last week. And Pratyush, I don't know, I'm sure all of you all know that, you know, Pratyush is one of the greatest, one of the greatest sarod players, and he's one of the master musicians that I call. He's probably a genius in the music world, you know, and his arrangements are, you know, absolutely mind-blowing. The way he interprets, a song. So I'm sure you all will like that a lot. And the reason why these things all come up like this is because there is a lot of heart in it. Okay, so have a lot of heart, you know, play it with a lot of heart. I will keep coming back. I will keep coming back with lots of this small, what will I say? Small suggestions, advice, or, you know, the learnings that I've learned. You know, I'll keep passing on to you. I'll keep posting some of these videos. One of the struggles that I have taught few students. You know, I won't say students, you know, they were more friends. You know, I've maintained or remained in touch with, you know, most of them. But, you know, it sometimes gets difficult because, you know, you need to, I like people who have already learned a little bit and then have come to me. You know, it's much more easier to, you know, give a little bit of the fine-tuning tips, you know, and that's mainly because there is a paucity of time. But because it's a lot of investment in terms of time investment, a lot of investment from your personal time, both from you and from me. So that's why I thought, you know, I'll start doing this and I'll just share, you know, and you can just pick it up. Anybody who would need, you know, any guidance ever, if you need even for a 10-minute guidance, just pick up the phone and call me. You know, don't worry about anything. I'll immediately tell you. I'll immediately help you. I'm more than happy to do that. This instrument should survive. This instrument should grow even further. The goal is to master this instrument. The goal is to take the instrument forward, right? So that's exactly, you know, how all of us have been doing this since, you know, my uncle actually brought this instrument to the forefront as one of the, you know, great soloists. And listen to all his recordings which are available on the net right now. Thankfully, because of net, you know, because of YouTube, because of, you know, Google, because of various other platforms, you get in iTunes, you know, you get so many such, you know, wonderful creations and recordings. Just listen to them. Listen to how he did that. You know, sometimes we get caught in things that, you know, oh, I can do this better now. You have to always understand what he did was in 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. It was unthinkable that time, what he did with this instrument. And he never learned. I mean, there was no teacher. He learned it all by himself. So he could sing very well. He could write. You know, he taught everybody grammar. Without grammar, no one learned from him. You know, so not only writing notations, but, you know, how to read a notation, how you can start learning about writing a notation, then exposing yourself to, you know, various forms of music, having discussions on music. So do all of that, mix with people. You know, you should have your friends who are critics.